starting Be'etzes Hashem Siman Yud Dal of Maamar Shevuos. And the subject is, we're trying to prove that Aliyah, that immigration to Eretz Yisrael, even with permission from the ruling power, is still a transgression of the Shalosh Shevuos. Now before we see this inside, I just want to say something that I think it's important to say it now, even though the Rebbe doesn't bring it till Siman Tes Zayin, and he brings it very bekitza there, but I want to say it over now. The Avnei Nezer is the main one who says that that immigration with permission is mutter, and it's only a mochama that's aser. And I want to just see it inside, because it's important to know what the Rebbe is responding to here, and how his kashas affect this situation. So look at the Avnei Nezer. It's in page 3 of the Maamar Koimus, and it starts over here in Ois Nun Vav. It's highlighted here, the bottom right corner.
Avra.
Now, Now what he's saying here is, the Avnei Nezer had a problem. He wanted to explain why most Gedolim didn't come to Eretz Yisrael throughout the Galus. So he provided a few different answers. And now he's trying to say an answer like this. That there's a klal that called the leisa b'tzibur leisa b'yachid. He brings it from Pesachim that anything that's not applicable to the whole Jewish people is not applicable to a single person. And in this case, what that means is that a single Jew could go to Eretz Yisrael. We know that from that Reb Zeir holds not like Rabbi Yehuda. He holds that a single Jew could go. But the thing is, if you're going to say that there's a mitzvah to go and everyone is supposed to go, then where are you going to draw the line? Everyone's going to go, and it's going to end up being an invasion in a Medina. So, since that's the and that's the Shalosh Shevuos. So since that's the case, Dr. Avnei Nezer, it can't be that even a single Jew is mechuyev to go. So you can't tell anybody. You can't have a time. Let's say, why didn't any of the Rishonim, Achronim go there to Yisrael? And you can't have a kasha on them because there was no chiyuv. Because if there would be a chiyuv, then everyone would have to go. So he says like this in Siman Nun Vav, in Ois Nun Vav. He says, Ibra dechol zeh. He says, all that I've written now is hu rak kashe'ein loy reshus me'em amshala la'alois. That's only if you don't have prior permission. You didn't get a certificate in the mail saying you have permission, you have a visa to come to Eretz Yisrael. Aval im hisig reshus la'alois. If this person got permission to come, ulis yashiv shama, and to settle there, shuv mechuyev la'alois. Then he becomes obligated to go up. Then you can't say anymore that anything doesn't apply to the whole Jewish people, doesn't apply to an individual. Why? Because if the government would give permission to all the Jewish people to go up, it wouldn't be called going up as a wall. Why? Rashi says that it's with a strong hand. So it means conquest, it means a military invasion. Yeah? So this is where he says his shita. Basically, if the government gives permission for the whole Jewish people to come up, then it would be mutter. And this is what the Zionists used, of course, to build their whole shita on by the Balfour Declaration, that it's allowed to come up.
Except it was revoked.
It was revoked.
The problem is, it was revoked in response to their foolish of shouting, "The land is ours," which you got the man angry, so they ended up revoking it all because of their foolishness.
Right.
Even Cook wasn't pro what they were doing.
Right. Well, the Rebbe says later on that if the Zionists wouldn't have done this, they wouldn't have been talking about Medina so much, then maybe the Yidden of Europe could have been saved. They could have come to Palestine. The British would have continued to let immigrants in. But since...
And if they signed the declaration, but it was only their foolishness that they shouted, "The land is ours," did the British decide just to revoke the Balfour Declaration.
Now,
they even got violent. They were pointing guns out right during the Balfour Declaration proposal to be signed.
Okay, so he says like this. Now, Gam Yesh Loimar, the second shot, and it's very important to keep the distinction between the first shot and the second shot. The first shot was that any aliyah with permission is mutter.
Yes.
And he says, Gam Yesh Loimar. We could also learn Ki im yutan reshus lechulam, that if there's permission given for the whole Jewish people to come up, yechashev pekuda. It's considered like a divine remembrance. It's considered like Hashem is sending us a signal that this is the end of Galus. After the oifen zeh, Hainu beloy pekuda lesa b'tzibur, even though that right now only one yid is getting permission to go up. So what's the what's the comparison to the tzibur, to the whole Jewish people? Because right now there's no pekida, there's no divine remembrance for him. So if there'd be no divine remembrance for the whole tzibur, they wouldn't be allowed. Mikol makom, still we could say it's called that it is this mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael applies to the tzibur. Okay, So now, looking ahead, next page, page 4 in the Maamar Koimis, the Avnei Nezer, in 2 Simanim later, he has a tshuva that he wrote to someone who was upset about this first tshuva. Someone wrote him a question on this first tshuva that he's going against the Avos Yonason. Avos Yonason is Rabbi Yonason Abshitz, and he wrote that gathering the Jews together, even with permission, is aser under the Shalosh Shevuos. So the Avnei Nezer says like this: Devar mashe kosavti be'ois nun vav. This is what I wrote. She mutan reshus lekulam la'alois lo yeh shvua. The Rashi pirish b'choyme yachad b'yod chazaka. That I said, based on Rashi, that if everyone gets permission to come up, it's not going to be in the Ve'eres HaShvua. V'im b'reshus ein zeh b'yod chazaka. So if they're getting permission, it's not called with a strong hand. So that was his raya, that permission is mutter. Ukvoidoi heir, and you asked the kasha, shebesefer avos yonason cost of the afila b'reshus aser. The Rabbi Yonason Abshit says even with permission is aser. Divrei drashahem. So he says, nah. He says the Rabbi Yonason Abshit is just saying the drasha. He's not saying the real halacha. The elef kayotzi bohem, even 1,000 drashas like this, lo yazizu divrei Rashi mim koimon. They won't take away Rashi's words. V'hagoin Morein Rabbi Yonason zal be'atzmoi ladina lo yahayizaz min pirish Rashi. Even Rabbi Yonason Abshit himself would have paskin like Rashi. He was just saying it as a drasha. Then he says, "Va'asher kasavti sham the efsher yechashiv pekuda." This is I wrote also in that Siman, that maybe if the permission would be given for all of them, it would be considered like a divine signal. Haya hakavana du ulai zeh kavanas Rashi. What I meant was that could be that's what Rashi meant. Mishum de v'perik kama de Yuma. It says in the first parak of Yuma, "Yilmali asisim atzmeichem kechoyma v'alisim kulchem yimei Ezra v'chulu." V'sham pirish kechoyma b'shus the aliyah b'imei Ezra b'shus haya. Basically, he's saying that he's asking the kasha that we spoke about in Siman Yud. The Rebbe already brought it down that basically in Siman in Yuma Daf Tesam base, the Gemara says that Rish Lakish criticized the Babylonian Jews for not coming up as a wall.
Rabbi Yochanan disagreed with him.
Rabbi Yochanan disagreed, but Al-Quds we see that's called choyma when a certain number, I don't know what the number is, but a certain number of Jews come as a group to Eretz Yisrael, even with permission, it's called as a wall. So Ibazoi, if we're going to say that, then how could he say that Rashi, based on Rashi in Ksubas, that it's only when it's a strong hand, it's only when it's an armed invasion? We see even a peaceful immigration is called choyma.
Yeah.
So the Avnei Nezer is asking on himself this kasha. So he says, therefore, I said a different shot. That maybe when it's given permission, it will be considered like a signal from Hashem. So what is he doing here? So I want to just explain a little bit what he's doing, because seemingly there's no nafkamina. Like once you're telling me that Rishus is mutter because of divine remembrance or whatever reason, Lamaisi, you're saying that a large aliyah, it's aser b'chayma, is only talking when it's an invasion.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have Shredat Gemara and Yuma. The Gemara and Yuma says that even a peaceful immigration is called chayma. So I think what he means is like this. He means that avada, it's true that chayma means any immigration of a large number. It doesn't matter whether it's military or not.
Again, chayma is a defensive wall, not even an offensive wall. So it's actually far from being that it means military force. Because choma means it's a defensive wall.
Right, that's kind of like what the Marsha says that he brought in Siman Yud. The Marsha says that if they would come up with a small number of people and they need to defend themselves, they build a wall.
Again, without a choma, you cannot be serious that it means an offensive wall. It can't be serious. Rather, it means defensive.
Okay.
Even a choma word heat that protects us from around.
Right, okay, that's a good point.
And kira is a wall for attacking.
So an aliyah b'chayim means a mass aliyah of any kind, peaceful or military. Yeah. So the question is, then what does Rashi say Yad Chazaka according to the Avnei Nezer? Yeah. The Rebbe is going to have his own shot, by the way. Yad Chazaka doesn't mean military at all, but the Avnei Nezer learns it does mean military.
Yeah.
So then what is he doing with it? So I think what he's doing is Rashi stuck it in as a side point. Rashi's saying that, by the way, if you're going to have a kasha on me, that let's say the king gives permission for every Jew in the world to come up to Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be a pekida min hashamayim. So then how could it be aser? That's the end of Galus. The whole thing of the Shalosh Shevuos is not to go up before the end of Galus. Yeah. But if there's Hashem puts it in the heart of a king to give permission for all Jews to come up, that's called the end of Galus. So how is it ever possible to be over on this Shvuah?
Yes.
So Rashi said biyad chazaka. Rashi said that because he wanted to explain that kasha, but it's a side point. It's not the main taich of the word chayma. The taich of the word chayma, the meaning
Protective.
of the word, translation of the word, is any large mass immigration.
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, what would be the nafkamina? Let's say the king gives permission for 100,000 Jews to come.
Yeah.
The British had quotas, So let's say they have a quota of 100,000, and let's say for some reason you determine that 100,000 is called chayma. So then that would be aser. Even the Avnei Nezer agrees that would be aser, because that's not a pekida, because a pekida means all the Jews could come up, and that's not what's happening. He's just giving permission for a few. And
which was the case at the time, because they didn't let all Jews come in.
They didn't let all Jews.
And there were strict immigration, which limited who can move where and when.
Right. And not only that, but they said that they're not making a Jewish state. That's very important. People don't realize that. The British said, we're not trying to make a Jewish state. We're just trying to make a place for Jews to go, a Jewish
homeland, right. They did not say, we'll just give it over to Jews and say it's legally theirs. Right.
And there's a famous story that Weizmann got up, in, I think 1920, and he said that Palestine will become as Jewish as England is English and as French is French. So Winston Churchill, Foreign Secretary at that time, replied and said, that's not what we meant. We never said such a thing. We just said that the Balfour Declaration is there
for the Jewish refuge place, homeland.
Right, people to go there, and that's it, but not to become their own country.
Not a realistic thing to expect just to give independence like that from a big empire. Because we had a big empire at the time. It's not realistic.
Yeah, well, they were trying to break off the empire at that time after Wilson and but the point was not that it would be a Jewish country. It would be a country democratically ruled by all the people in it. The problem was the people in it couldn't make shalom, so they weren't able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the point. So the Avnei Nezer is saying that that any kind of an aliyah with permission, if it's enough people, would be a transgression of the oaths. Unless it's the whole Jewish people, then it's a pekida. Yeah. So comes out that he doesn't say what they make him out to be saying. And by the way, I have it in the last page. This is my own sefer that I published about 9 years ago, where I have a shot here in the Avnei Nezer here that I highlighted. Basically, I gave 3 nafkaminas how it could be chayma and be oster according to the Avnei Nezer, even though they gave permission, and it's not a merida. And one of them is what I just said, that they gave a lot of people permission for, like, let's say 100,000 people or whatever you decide chayma means. And a second seer I gave, or actually the third one in this list here, is let's say they gave permission. Let's say they said we're leaving Eretz Yisrael on a certain date, and whoever is stronger wins, which is what they did in 1948.
Yeah.
So that's not merida, because the Jews weren't rebelling against England. England didn't care who got the land afterwards. Yes. They just left. But it is chayma, because it's not a pekida. This is not like the government saying, okay, we're giving the Jews back Eretz Yisrael. It was just like, they're leaving, and that's it. Fight it out yourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now let's see. Now, my reason why I brought this down now is I want to show you that the rise that the Rebbe is going to bring against the Avnei Nezer are only going to be rise according to the first shot of the Avnei Nezer, not the second shot. The second shot, these rise won't really be rise.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the situation. Let's see it inside. V'yoyster mizeh mevur b'divrei Ramban parshas Kisavai. Ramban Kisavai is going to say that it's during the Galus time, Hashem wants Yidden to live in Chutz La'aretz, in the rest of the world, in the diaspora, and the Teichacha, the curses of the Teichacha only apply when they're in Eretz Yisrael. But once they go out,
yes,
they'll have a good existence.
Yeah.
So that's why it's dangerous to come back before the time.
Yeah.
He says that b'soif parsha Teichacha v'zel l'shana hakadosh v'da ki ha'Teichacha b'me'era u'shar kol ha'Teichachos. All the curses mentioned in Kisavai. Heim kulam ad kaloisai oischa mi'alo adama. That's only until the Yidden go into exile. Asher atav Hashem l'rishta, that you come there to inherit. Aval achrei agolus, after the exile, lo yikal aloisai. The Torah doesn't curse the Jews. Rak lavoid shalom Elohim acherim. The only curse that they get there is that they're going to serve other gods. Eitz for Evan of wood and stone, which we said means that they serve the nations that serve the gods. But all the rest of the curses there are all talking when they're in Eretz Yisrael. It says afterwards, you'll be pushed off the land. Shehu Agolus, that's the exile. Aval achrei hayoseinu begolus bi'artzos oivenu. After we're in the lands of our enemies, loinis kalalu masi adenu. Then we don't have this curse on our. The Torah says that you'll bring out lots of seeds into the field, that you won't get much harvest, and all that kind of stuff. That won't happen in Chutz La'aretz. Ki shivaseinu begolus hu ha'avtacha she'amar lanu. That when we live in Chutz La'aretz, we get this promise. V'af gam zois bi'yoisam be'eretz oiveim. That even when they're in the land of their enemies, loy ma'astim v'loy ge'altim. I didn't reject them. L'chaloisam v'hafer brisi itam ki ani Hashem loikeim. So Hashem watches over us in Galus, and He makes sure that we don't have these clauses there. Ad kan l'shoyin hakadosh. Umevur mizeh, we see from the Ramban, shehav tachasei shel Hashem yisborach shelo yiyeh chas v'shalom klaya. That this promise Hashem gave the Jewish people that will never be destroyed, that's He rak b'hiyoseinu be'eretz oivenu. That's only as long as we stay in the land of our enemies. Loy be'eretz Yisrael, but not if we stay in Eretz Yisrael. Ibkein higzeira noira me'ito yisborach shemai. Now we have a problem. We have a big gzeira from Hashem, a very scary gzeira. Liyois begoil loy be'eretz Yisrael, that we have to be in exile and not in Eretz Yisrael. Because if not, if we're in Eretz Yisrael, then we get all the toichus back, and we don't get that.
Well, besides, with nuclear weapons, it only makes sense. Because one nuclear weapon can make a Holocaust in a split second. You don't even when you wait 5 years for it.
Exactly, and that's what the Gemara says.
It doesn't seem too safe with the existence of nuclear weapons. However, even everybody from America runs out. America has 10,000 nuclear rockets to shoot out. And all too serious is that, and America, Russia, UK, and France together have over 90,000 nuclear weapons. So yeah.
So that's why the Gemara says in Psachim that Hashem did a chesed with the Jews, that He scattered them around the world, because if they come to one place, they'll be easier to.
Well, especially in our time, with the existence of nuclear weapons, it makes sense.
Yep. So he says, the fact is, in every generation, the Goyim want to kill us. But Hashem saves us. If Hashem's promise to save us is not in effect anymore, because we go back there to Yisrael, there's no greater danger than this.
Because they're going to tell you that Hashem only applies to Yisrael. It can't be. Because Hashem promised in Golos that we're going to live a safe life right after a terrible close like Yisabo. So all these promises are worthless then. That Hashem promised us. And besides, even if there is no even if you somehow free from anti-Semitism, Hashem can bring back tzara on you in all kinds of other ways. Believe me, Hashem doesn't need anti-Semitism to bring tzara on you.
Right. Well, that's what people have seen over the last 67 years. They thought that Zionism would be the end of anti-Semitism, and
even if there was none, Hashem can bring diseases, famine, etc., etc., all without the need for any anti-Semitism. Believe me, you can't escape Hashem's zera.
So he says, "V'im kain ef shaloimer shemuter lalois peshus." So we can't say, like the Avnei Nezer's first shot, that he says that it's that when there's reshus, then it's mutter, then the whole thing becomes mutter, because ki af ba'aliyah b'reshus hamalchus, even if the government would give reshus, al kaponim lo niskayma gzeira liyois be'eretz oiveiim, but Hashem's gzeira is not being fulfilled. So therefore, you can't say that. But as I pointed out, that's only the first shot, the Avnei Nezer. The second shot, he says that if there would be reshus for all the Jewish people to come up, then it would be like a sign that's the end of the Galus. Okay, but he's not talking about that, because we're not talking about reshus for the whole Jewish people. Okay, it's clear that if most of the Jewish people would be in the lands of their enemies, and they would be, enduring the exile, don't think that the Jews in Eretz Yisrael are in more danger than the Jews in Chutz La'aretz. No, the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, there's a small number of them, like they're supposed to be. They'll be protected under the same promise, because we're basically the Jewish people, and 99% of them are fulfilling the gzeira of exile. But right? The Ramban just means that if most of the Jewish people would come up against the will of Hashem, then you have the problem that this Ramban presents, that the Ramban says that the clauses come back into force. that the fact that most of the Jewish people lives in exile, according to the Gzeir that Hashem made, Hi Amatzelis Gam Toish Ve'eretz Yisrael. That saves
the minority that lives there.
The minority that lives there.
As long as the masses are in Golos and a little bit are in Eretz Yisrael, then the Gzeir protects those few remaining in Eretz Yisrael.
Right. Okay.